Hello, brothers and sisters, and welcome to another Temple 420 Bible study. I'm here with CraigX and see who else shows up here for another reading through the Bible and Bible discussion. Should I start out the prayer, or do you want to start out the prayer for today?
I'll be happy to pray us into this.
Sounds good.
Dear Lord, please help us to reach the right person, that they can be touched by your word and grow in their confidence in you, that you are a God that can be relied on. Amen.
Amen. So you guys just finished up Luke?
Yeah, we just finished up Luke. And you wanted to read Leviticus tonight?
Yeah, I've been doing them sequentially, so technically on Leviticus 9.
Okay. You want to read it? I don't have access to a Bible here.
I can pull it up here.
And I'm on my phone, not a computer.
Gotcha. Yep, I got too many things to get up here, so I get it on the computer here.
Okay.
Leviticus 9 is the Lord accepting Aaron's offering. On the 8th day, Moses called Aaron and his sons and the elders of Israel. He said to Aaron, "Take a calf from the herd for sin offering and a ram without blemish for burnt offering, and offer them before the Master Yahuwah." Aaron,
Wait, before Yahuwah?
Yeah.
Okay, I love that, because I was having this big discussion with someone about the accurate name of God. And Yahuwah is like Yeshua, and I think it comes from the Yud He Vav He, and Yeshua means salvation. So, and we were talking about how Hebrew names have meaning. So I will not interrupt until I hear something else again that I feel I have to. But keep going.
That's my understanding too. They've got a couple ways they do it, like Yahweh and Yahuwah are different ways that some people put the vowels back in and said those are the way to go. Leviticus 9:3 says, "You must speak to the people of Israel today and take a male goat for the sin offering and a calf and a lamb, both a year old and without blemish for a burnt offering. Also take an ox and a ram for peace offerings to sacrifice before the Master Yahuwah, and a grain offering mixed with oil, because today the Master Yahuwah will appear to you." So they brought all that Moses commanded to the tent of meeting, and all of the assembly of Israel approached and stood before the Master Yahuwah. Then Moses said, "This is what the Master Yahuwah commanded you to do, and so his glory may appear to you." Moses said to Aaron, "Come near the altar and offer your sin offering and burnt offering, and make atonement for yourselves and for the people, and offer the sacrifice for the people to make atonement for them, as the Master Yahuwah commanded." So Aaron went near the altar and killed the calf for the sin offering, which was for himself. The sons of Aaron presented the blood to him, and he dipped his finger into it and put it on the horns of the altar. And then he poured out the blood at the base of the altar. The interesting thing I see with that too is it being the calf. I heard that they used the representation of the bull when Moses didn't come back, because they really saw a strong bull as what their representation for Yahweh would have been.
Interesting. Well, in the Aleph, the picture of the Aleph is, especially in the early alphabet, is a picture of a bull with horns.
I've heard that too. So to me, like the calf relates as the sun. So that's like an interesting shadow there.
Right. And I
kill the calf.
And I think it was an idol that they worshipped in Egypt as well. So they were leaving Egypt with some of that, the culture of Egypt. So these, were we in the desert now? How far out is Leviticus? This is the 40 years wandering in the desert?
Yeah, I think it's still part of the 40 years that they have not got to. the
Right.
promised land. They're
But they
just
had
getting
already
organized.
built the tent of meeting,
Yeah, exactly.
which is the kind of like the framework for the original temple.
Sure. Leviticus 9:9. The sons of Aaron presented the blood to him. He dipped the finger into it and put it on the horns of the altar, and then poured the blood out at the base of the altar. However, he burned the fat, the kidneys, and the covering of the liver on the altar as a sin offering. The master Yahuwah had commanded Moses, the meat and the hide burned outside camp. Aaron killed the burnt offering, and his sons gave him the blood, which he splashed against every side of the altar. And then he gave them the burnt offering piece by piece, together with the head, and burnt them on the altar. He washed the inner parts and the legs and burned them on top of the burnt offering on the altar. Aaron presented the people's sacrifice, a goat, and then took the sacrifice of their sin. He sacrificed it for sin as he had done the first goat. He presented the burnt offering and offered it as the master Yahuwah. He presented the grain offering filled with his hand with it and burned it on the altar, along with the morning's burnt offering. He killed also the ox and the ram and the sacrifice for the peace offering, which was for the people. Aaron's sons gave him the blood and sprinkled it on every side of the altar. However, they cut the fat of the bull and the ram, that covers the inner parts, the kidneys, and the covering of the liver. They took the parts out that were cut out and put these on the breasts, and Aaron burned the fat on the altar. Aaron waved the breasts and the right thighs as a wave offering before the master Yahuwah, as Moses commanded. Then Aaron lifted up his hands toward the people and blessed them. They came down from offering the sin offering, the burnt offering, and the peace offering. Moses and Aaron went into the tent of meeting and came out again and blessed the people. The glory of the master Yahuwah appeared to all the people. The fire came out of the master Yahuwah and consumed the burnt offering and the fat on the altar. When all the people saw this, they shouted and lay face down.
Interesting.
To do all those sacrifices now. Those are so many.
Yeah, well, they're sacrificing a lot of animals there. And it goes all the way back to Adam and Eve, where the shedding of blood is required for the atonement of sin.
All right. Christ finally paid that
The
for us.
the ultimate sacrifice. What's that, Sam? You're going to jump in? Okay.
It's interesting. The fire comes out from Yahweh and burns the fat off the altar too.
Right. Well, and that's probably what gave Elijah so much confidence that he could pour his trusting in God. You know, he said, if you have the faith of a mustard seed, you can move mountains. And Elijah had the faith in Yahuwah, in Yeshua, that he would come and burn his offering up where the other guys were slashing themselves and cutting themselves. But he knew that our God, or the God of the Hebrews, was one who could call fire down, provide his Shekinah glory to guide the people through the wilderness out of Egypt, and then here he is again doing the same thing with the sacrifices.
Where
I don't know. I don't know if I said that articulately, but I'm glad you understood what I was saying.
makes sense.
Yeah, we need to buy a new one of those screens to clean the pool.
Oh
All right,
yeah.
it's falling. It's falling apart. Sammy's cleaning the leaves off the top of the pool before he jumps in.
You finally get all your frogs out of there.
Yeah. Well, what we do is, it's okay if the frogs jump in and cool themselves and then jump out, but if they start to lay guppy eggs, or whatever, those tadpole eggs, then we empty out the pool and we use the water to water the garden, and then we refill it with fresh, clean water.
My
You gonna
mom used
baptize the cat? No? Okay.
Mom used to have a saltwater pool. I wondered if that would work if you help put salt in it or something.
Well, it'll keep it clean for sure. Salt will kill the bacteria the way chlorine does, probably in a healthier way. But then I don't know if we could use that water to water the garden afterwards, or if it would
True.
uh, uh, kill the plants that were growing. I know they use some salt in their gardens.
Yeah, Epsom
Not
salt, but I don't know the difference.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I want to know that too, because I know Epsom salt will help
Yeah.
heal you as well.
Yeah, my grandpa always used it for his tomatoes, so I know that one.
So
So
I'm gonna have. I'm really interested in salts because that's where the word salary comes from.
is it?
Yeah, people were paid in salt and rye, and so you got your salt and rye, which was your salary, especially on British ships. But I know that was even a payment used back in the days of the Roman era as well.
Interesting.
Yeah. I was just talking with Caesar, who works for me, about how we still are living in this Roman culture. And we talked because in Spanish, diez is 10,
Mhm.
nueve is 9, ocho or October would be 8, September would be 7. And so these months got moved back for July and August, which were the two 31-month days to celebrate Julius Caesar and his son Caesar Augustus. So they just shoved those in the middle, gave the kids the summer off, and you were supposed to worship Julius Caesar and Caesar Augustus, and yet here we are 2,000 years later, and we're still doing that,
All
even
right.
though
Yeah.
our calendar is based on Christ's birthday, supposedly approximate birthday. Um, the fact that we have July and August as vacation months, in the kind of the best time of the year too, the hot summer times, and we still use the Roman letters as our alphabet, is very interesting. When you think about historically where it all comes from.
Right. It's pretty wild. I've heard even the Jewish calendar that was 365 days fit better than the other one. So
Say that again.
I think it was the Jewish calendar that's 306, I don't know, some other amount of days, and it fit better when one of them does.
I
And it's weird to
I
me
think
that we,
it's 300. It's 360 days, with some years having 12 months, some years having 13 months
like,
in the
why don't
Hebrew
we,
calendar. Um, I don't know what the 13th month is called. God, we got some good questions here. We should find these answers so that we can share them with our listeners. What the Epsom salt? I should be writing this stuff down, but I'm sitting by the pool.
yeah, Epsom salt, and what, the 13th month?
Salt calendar, and I think that's to adjust the calendar so it stays accurate with the seasons. But the Hebrew calendar goes by the moon. The new moon is the new month. When you first see the first sliver of the new moon, that's the first day from Jerusalem. That's how you know it's a new month. That's why Rosh Hashanah is the holiday that we don't know the day or the hour, because not only does it have to be that sliver of the moon, but it also has to be visible from the mountains above Jerusalem.
Nice. Let's see. The 13th month is Adar
So
2.
that's the only holiday we don't know the exact hour or day of its coming. And
Because
it's
I actually
also called the Day of Trumpets, or the Day of Shouts.
asked Chat GPT and it
Oh,
said the 13th
hold
month.
on. I got to readjust my head.
Or
Okay, now I can hear you again. What was that you were saying?
I asked ChatGPT, and it said the 13th month that can be added to the calendar is usually referred to as Adar 2 or Adar Shini in the Hebrew calendar.
Because Adar would be the 12th month.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So it's kind of like a sequel in the film business. Rocky 2. Dave's on set. Okay, so he's making. Okay. Bible study.
It's interesting. The Jewish temple I go to always equivalates it with like all the episodes of Star Wars.
The Bible you go to equates what with the episodes of Star Wars?
The Torah said, "Hey, here's another episode, and another episode, and another episode." And I think it's like Star Wars. You got 7 to 9 or 12 episodes of the same things going on.
Interesting. Did you ever hear of the Jedis being Jesus' disciples?
No, I didn't.
I think that's where they got the name Jedi from. I may be wrong on that, but I've heard that they were called Jesus' disciples and he called them Jedis. Have we finished Leviticus and we're just chit-chatting now, or we still have a little bit to go in Leviticus?
So we finished Leviticus 9. I've got Leviticus 10 if you want to go into that there.
Nah, not at all. I like doing one chapter at a time. We finished Luke last night, and now that I'm reading them over and over again, it's hitting home. Like there's still something I learn out of every single book of the Bible. Like, oh, I didn't know that. And even sometimes chapter by chapter, there's things like, oh, I forgot about that one. Or, you read it over one time, but when you read it more deeply and you get into it, it becomes more, oh, look at that small detail. And it seems like every detail is there intentionally.
And it seems to wildly, whenever I see it, it seems to always apply. It applied to that time, but a lot of times it applies to something now that we can acquaint it to and learn something, which is always the wildest thing.
Yeah, well, I give me an example of what you're talking about.
I know a lot of times, like I will just like pick up the Bible and read a section of it, just going through, and it'll like answer something that's relevant to what I'm thinking about and going through today. But then I can also see that it was directly inferring something that they were given a response to then. And it seems almost like a timeless, like I can see why they used a living word as the example there.
Right. God, that's so funny. I'm getting overwhelmed by Charlie Doff sending me texts every day, trying to convince me he's the Messiah. Does he text you as well, or is it only me?
He doesn't. No, he used to send
okay.
over on Facebook, but then he stopped doing that.
All right.
He can me on a few on Facebook on like our group because he drops usually comments on that.
Well, that's good. I'm glad he's still paying attention. He sends me texts all the time, and it makes me think about the Bible sometimes, which is nice because he also sends me Bible quotes, and occasionally he'll ask me questions like, "What do I think of this?" or "What do I think of that?" And I said, "I think you're changing the word of the Bible sometimes to make it fit what you wanted to say." And then he sent me this huge, like 5-10 texts, and I said, "Doth ye protest too much?" And then that really set him off, and I got a bunch more too. But he did. I do like the questions he's always posing because it makes you think about the word. And someone on Facebook with the pentagram in his thing, we were talking about the flat Earth, and he's like, "Oh, does it hurt to be as stupid as you are? I believe in science, not some made up pie in the sky, old spaghetti monster in the sky, or whatever he was using." And it it's funny how the Satanists really stick to that globe theory and think they're so smart because of, um, oh well, I believe in science. I'm like, all right, well, tell me, how does an atmosphere stay? How do you have an atmosphere in the vacuum of space? How do all the stars stay in the same exact place night after night, even though you're flying through uh, the universe at 66.6 miles an hour, uh, spinning around at another blah 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 with the Earth tilted at this degree, and they never have an answer for
No.
that. And for their model to work, the Earth has to slow down and speed up. It isn't at a constant rate during the seasons because they say it travels around the sun in an elliptic, which would mean that sometimes it would be going faster and sometimes it would be going slower. But can you imagine changing speeds with a huge planet and not being able to feel that motion? Like, it would create hurricanes and uh, tidal waves of such epic proportion that it seems somewhat ridiculous.
And according
Um,
to Oven, even more ridiculous because he says it even slows down in the rotation continuously. So if you went back millions of years, it would be spinning like insane. Nothing would be able to stay on top.
right. And how would it develop an atmosphere? Yeah. And they said, well, the atmosphere moves with the spin. And I'm just like, it's that same theory of the train moving and you throw a ball back and forth between two trains if they're moving at parallel at the same speed. I think this was Einstein's part of his theory. And relative to the motion, it would look like it was just going back and forth in a straight line, but from another point of view, you would see it would be moving forward. And it just doesn't make sense how a helicopter, and the clouds would be attached to this atmosphere if it wasn't in a closed environment. If we're an open vacuum of space, uh, it would just all blow away.
Right. That makes
So getting back to you, you're talking about how it's relative for that time period, but has lessons for us too. I was thinking of that in Luke as he was talking about the parables, and that they make sense even for today's world, and yet some of them relate to something so far back as well. So it is interesting, and I can't think of a specific example, unfortunately, at the moment. But I kind of observed that same thing that you were talking about, like, oh, that's relative to our life because,
yeah. And a lot of times it's even something personal that's going on with me, which is always crazy too.
mm-hmm.
Like I was looking
Well,
for an answer and then read the Bible and it's right there. Not in the same term that I would expect the answer, but it gives me part of the answer so that I know what's going on there.
right, which is a comforting feeling and that, oh, that's what the guy said to me on Facebook. He goes like, have you, oh no, that's what Charlie asked me. He goes, have you ever heard from God? Has God ever spoken to you? I'm like, okay, like God speaking to Charlie, was the inference was God speaking to Charlie. And I'm like, yeah, God speaks to me every day when I pick up his word and I read it, and I know that's his voice, his word, uh, and he is speaking to me.
So yeah, I've heard from God too, but he he likes to hear that all the time.
Um, who Charlie doesn't like to hear that.
But yeah, I think it conflicts with I don't know something that he's got in there with that or something. You
Yeah,
know,
well, I think one of his other questions, he goes, "Are you the son of Aaron?" Getting back to Leviticus, Aaron and his sons, because his dad's name is Aaron. That, like I said, I think he's just reading something into the Bible. And what's the British guy's name with the beard who has a podcast who's being charged with rape right now because the government doesn't like him anymore? Russell Brand.
oh
He
yeah,
said when I was younger, I wanted to be Jesus. Now that I'm older, I just want to be like Jesus. And I think that kind of goes back to the Matrix, that film with Keanu Reeves. We all want to be something special. We all want to be the one in some way, and we are something special, each one of us. But we're not the one. as far as the reincarnation of Christ, because I know a lot of people that have this Messiah complex where I think that what we should actually hope for is to be, like Russell Brand says, like him. We don't have to be him reincarnated. We don't have to be Cleopatra. You know how like reincarnated people always pick a famous person that they're reincarnated from. Never, oh,
Yeah.
I was Joe the plumber back in ancient Rome. I used to clean the sewers. Yeah, they're all like, I was Mark Anthony. I was Paul the apostle.
Yeah.
Uh,
Somebody like that.
somebody somebody famous. Well, I read a book one time, and it was an interesting book. I met this guy. I think his name was Nick Bergerac, something like that, and he wrote a book, The Reincarnated Apostle Paul. And maybe he had some past life experience, hypnotism session, where he started saying all these things about Paul. And it was interesting because it gave some insight into the culture and the history of that period. But it seems so far-fetched that all these reincarnated people claim to be someone famous from history and never just an average Joe.
Right. Yeah. Always trying to grasp at somebody else's fame there.
Right, exactly. That was the point I was trying to make. Um, and yeah, it is interesting. And I think that's going back to that we all want to be something special. And I think when you realize, hey, I'm a child of God, I'm a brother of Christ, uh, when we become a follower of his, and I think he even says something like that, you guys will do greater things than I. Oh, I just got splashed there. that um, that there is something special about each one of us when we put our faith in him. But to have to be reincarnated from someone famous is that kind of reaching out to, I want to be that one.
Right. Yeah, and among people, God's not a respecter of persons. So to him, it doesn't matter who you are.
Right.
Just,
Like, yeah, and that goes to the story of the beggar who sat outside of, I think the beggar was Eliza or Eleazar. Um, you know the story that I'm speaking of, the beggar who said, "Oh," and the rich man. I don't know if the rich man had a name, but his brothers were left behind, and he died, and so did the beggar. And the beggar went to the bosom of Abraham, was there with our father Abraham, and the rich guy was in hell, and there was a chasm between the two of them. And he said, "Well, can you send him back to my brother?" And the Lord said to him, even if someone returned from the dead, they still wouldn't believe. And I thought, oh, that's interesting because some people look at Christ being overcoming death and they get faith from that. They know that, oh, wow, if I put my faith in him by grace, I will have eternal life too. And yet, here he is, someone who came back from the dead, and still, most people, like that guy on Facebook, who I was having that discussion with, they still don't believe, even if someone did return from the dead.
I think, like Kent Hovind says, they want no accountability. They don't want there to be a God that they're accountable to. So they would rather they're related to a monkey.
Correct. Well, and that's my friend that I went to high school with named Grant. He is the same way. He's a kind of a womanizer, a professional gambler, a car dealer, and super nice guy, super intelligent, but puts all of his faith in science. And whenever I talk to him about God, and I've tried for years and years to get him to come to an understanding, because we argue on Facebook sometimes. Whenever I'm bored, I can go on there and argue with him. And he was kicked off of Facebook recently for no reason that he knew of. And I actually found his number because I didn't know his number. We only stay in touch through Facebook. But I
Yeah.
found his number through Google because he runs a car business out of Las Vegas. So if you need a car, You can look up Grant Strauss in Las Vegas, something auto, and it has his number. And I called him, and he called me right back. And he's like, "Oh, I'm at the poker table." And I said, "Hey, I saw you were off of Facebook. I just wanted to make sure you were okay." And he's like, "Yeah, I'm fine. Thanks for thinking of me." He was like, "I'm so disappointed too." He goes, "That was how I stayed in touch with all of the people from high school and friends, was via Facebook. So it was a kind of a big loss to him to be kicked off of there." And somehow I related that to like, wow, that I would be really kind of I've been suspended from Facebook so many times, but I've never been permanently kicked off. So it would be quite frustrating if
Okay.
if something like that happened.
Yeah, I debate with Grant sometimes on there in your walkway.
Oh yeah, you have too. So you know exactly who I'm talking about. Yeah, that's right. I've
Yeah,
seen you. That's right. And I always appreciate the support too.
always says something crazy. Have a thing about like I gotta stick something in there and say something.
You don't feel that good? You think you need to go to a doctor or what? You do. Are you going to be able to make it through the evening? Why don't you sleep in our room tonight, okay, sweetheart? All right. Um, so in case if anything is like an emergency, we'll get up and I'll take you to the doctor. Um, all right. My daughter had kind of an asthma attack in school today. She's a little,
So yeah, that's
yeah. The weather was being a little oppressive too. Um,
that heat can do it for sure.
yeah. Do you know anyone with asthma?
My daughter and my ex-wife and my dad.
All right. Yeah, it can be kind of scary when you can't breathe. I've had that experience once or twice in my life. Um, Fortunately, I'm pretty healthy.
That's good. For sure.
What's that? Your back is hurting right there? All right. We're going to end this Bible study pretty soon, and I'll start Googling some things and seeing what I can do to give you some relief. You want to go where? Yes, you can go ahead and do that.
When I dry up, could I?
No, you're in the pool.
I said when I dry up.
No, you didn't go to school today. You know what we talked about.
But you said if I get 2 eggs.
If I get 2 eggs?
Yeah, you said that.
No, I said you can go collect the eggs, and then I don't mind you watching a little TV in the gym.
Okay.
Okay. Life is a negotiation with kids, that's for sure.
Yeah, that's for sure.
uh, my kids are pretty good. They're really good at listening, and they help out around the house a lot. So I feel very blessed to have such helpful young people.
They do seem like good kids.
Yeah, and we read the Bible every night, and they really know it well, which is uh, something I'm so grateful for. Not only spending time with them every night in the Word, but the fact that they actually are learning it, and I question them on it. Like I'm like, okay, and who is this? Have you ever heard of this one? We listen, but we don't judge.
Yeah, yeah. You
So
told us
we
about
play.
that.
Oh yeah, we play that game with the Bible characters. Like my
We go.
wife got me to reveal the secret of my strength, and then she turned on me. Who am I?
Samson.
Yeah, we listen, but we don't judge. So
Good one.
anyway, well, I got to go spend time with my family again and get prepared. It's starting to get dark here, even though it looks pretty. It looks pretty light. No, we're not going to Motul again. Why do you want to go to Motul for the doctor?
Yeah.
No, I'm going to see what we can do to get your sister okay for the evening because we already have a doctor's appointment for the baby and Rocio tomorrow. So, what? We're going to go do another ultrasound because they thought the baby was going to be born May 6th and the baby hasn't come yet. So,
It's
we're
holding
going
back.
to hold him back. And I really think the baby's coming May 23rd because Sammy's the 26th and my son Chris is the 29th. So that would be like every 3 days right there would be a coincidence, but interesting coincidence.
Might be a good guess.
Yeah, that's what I thought. And Oh, today's my buddy Johnny Nadelman's birthday.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Anyway, life is interesting. Why don't you say a prayer to get us out of here, unless you want to keep going, but I got to get going.
Yeah, sounds good. Dear Almighty Living God, thank you for the blessings you give us, the time we get to talk about your word and go through your word and talk about our days here. May people watching this be blessed and encouraged and seek after your word and seek after you. Thanks for taking care of us, keeping us blessed. Amen.
Amen. All right. Well, nice seeing you as always, Chapin, and I'll see you Saturday morning.
Good seeing you too. See you Saturday.
Hopefully, I'll have some good news with High Times and a baby. All right.
Take care.
Talk to you soon. Bye.